You didn't choose that politician. You just had the option, sensation, the choice you made. And that difference, my friend, is exactly where the game begins. Not on election day, not in the debate, long before that, while you still thought you were simply watching television. Think about it. You were there, on the couch, watching that speech. Maybe it was a Tuesday night. Maybe you had a slice of pizza in your hand. Maybe the dog was by your side sniffing the box. And then he appeared on the screen. That candidate. Perfect suit, calculated smile, hair that probably cost $300 to look messy. And he started talking. And something inside you clicked. You agreed. You felt it. You decided. Simple as that, right? American free will in full action. God, freedom, democracy, and the remote control in hand. But here's the part that nobody puts in the campaign brochure. That wasn't his decision. That was engineering. Pure, cold, calculated emotional engineering. And you were the final product without even realizing you were on the assembly line. In fact, you didn't even see the factory. You only saw the pretty packaging and thought you'd made a smart choice. There's a nice name for it. It's called emotional targeting, or emotional targeting if you prefer the version that sounds less like a cyber attack on your psyche. And every modern political campaign in the United States is built on this mechanism. Every single one, without exception. It doesn't matter the party. It doesn't matter the candidate. It doesn't matter if you think you're on the right side or the wrong side. The mechanism is the same. Only the color of the button changes. The mechanism is simple, and it's precisely because it's simple that it's devastating. Political campaigns don't try to convince you with logic. That would be slow, expensive, and frankly, unreliable. Logic requires brain power. It requires comparing data, questioning sources, tolerating complexity, and no political consultant in Washington is going to bet millions of dollars on the average voter's ability to tolerate complexity on a Sunday afternoon, not when there's a much more efficient shortcut. The shortcut is emotional, fear, hope, anger, identity. These four horsemen of the electoral apocalypse are the basis of every campaign strategy ever since consultants discovered that the human brain responds to threats even before it can process rational information. And that's not a metaphor, it's neuroscience. It's evolutionary biology disguised as a presidential debate. The mechanics work like this. They don't try to change what you think. They activate what you already feel. A carefully chosen phrase, an image placed at the exact moment, a problem you've been carrying as anxiety since before even hearing the candidate's name. And then your brain, generous as it is, fills in the rest on its own. It makes the connection. It creates the narrative. It builds the conviction. And in the end, you are absolutely certain that you arrived at that conclusion on your own. Congratulations. You were the co-author of your own manipulation. Why does this work specifically for you? Because your brain wasn't designed for 21st century election. It was designed for savannas, for predators, for immediate survival. When something feels like a threat to your job, your family, your lifestyle, your identity, the brain doesn't stop to analyze. The brain reacts. It's fast, it's automatic, it's powerful, and it's completely, gloriously exploitable by anyone who knows how to push the right button. Think about it. When you hear that they are going to destroy the country, when you see that specific image in the 30-second commercial, when that music plays while the candidate waves to a crowd in slow motion under a golden light that looks like Hollywood, but was recorded in a Kansas gymnasium. You're not processing information. You're responding to a stimulus. Like Pavlov's dog. Only instead of salivating, you're sharing a Facebook post with capital letters and 3 exclamation points. And the most impressive thing is that it doesn't matter how smart you consider yourself. People with university degrees fall for it. People who have read Chomsky fall for it. People who swear they never fall for propaganda fall for it with almost poetic consistency. Because the system wasn't designed to fool stupid people. It was designed to outsmart intelligent people. There's a huge difference between the two. Now, the signs. Because there's a way to know if you're already inside this system without realizing, and they're uncomfortable to face. You defend a politician you barely know, not their votes, not their real policies, not their history of decision. You defend the vibe, the feeling, the tribe. When someone disagrees, you don't feel intellectual curiosity. You feel a personal attack, as if political opinion were an extension of your DNA. You share things without verifying, because verification would delay the immediate pleasure of being right, of being on the right side, of being part of the right thing. And the algorithm, that other system that works in parallel with the campaign, rewards exactly that behavior. More engagement, more virality, more dopamine. Say that this isn't you. Try it. Honestly, the result of all this is that you're not choosing, you're reacting. There's a huge difference between the two, and that difference is where your political autonomy lives or dies. Choosing requires distance, reflection, tolerance for uncertainty. Reacting is instantaneous, visceral, satisfying in the very short term, and absolutely devastating in the long term. And the system, the entire industry of consultants, data analysts, behavioral psychologists, content producers, and billions of dollars in political advertising, the entire system is optimized for you to react, for you to never stop, for the speed to be high enough that reflection can never catch up with you. And here's the most elegant, the most cruel part. The more you react, the more predictable you become. Easier to mold, easier to trigger next time. You're not building a political opinion. You're training an algorithm that studies you back. Every click, every share, every angry comment at 2 in the morning. All of this feeds the profile, makes the map more precise, makes the next trigger more surgical. It's as if you were both the guinea pig and the laboratory at the same time. Elegant, actually, if you can admire the thing for what it is before realizing that you are the experiment. The awareness of this is uncomfortable, deeply uncomfortable, because realizing you've been manipulated isn't a neutral experience. You can't simply absorb this information and move on without something changing internally. It means accepting that, to some extent, you were never entirely in control, that the firm conviction you had about that candidate, that party, that cause, there, was engineering underneath. It wasn't necessarily a lie, but it had structure. It had intention. There was someone on the other side who knew what they were doing long before you had any idea you were being targeted. And this perception, this fracture in the narrative that you are a sovereign and rational voter exercising your democracy with complete lucidity, this fracture is the beginning of something. It could be the beginning of a different relationship with information, with politics, with the way you form opinions. Or it could be the beginning of a defensive resistance that makes you bend in the opposite direction with the same intensity as before, only now with a more sophisticated philosophical justification. Both cases, incidentally, have been mapped. Both have been anticipated. The system also has a response to your awareness. It always does, because the system doesn't sleep, it doesn't have a wounded ego, and it doesn't need validation. It only needs you to keep clicking. If you want to understand just how far this really goes, how much deeper this rabbit hole goes, how much of your political identity has been constructed from the outside in, stay here, because the next layer is where things get really interesting and really disturbing. You think you chose that politician. You're absolutely convinced of it. But maybe, just maybe, from the moment you turned on the television, opened the app, heard the name for the first time, maybe they had already chosen long before.